There's a guy playing his guitar while he's driving. That's random. Okay, we're out here at the warehouse again. We've got the invacare SP2 over here. The backrest is a little bit low on this one, and I got to looking around through my inventory of stuff, and I remembered I've got the backup chair. This is a Quantum Q6 Edge 1 that I retrofitted motion concept seating onto, and these backrests look like they're pretty much the same. The mounting is fairly similar, so I think I will be able to swap it onto that chair. This one has the, what is it, the Helix Sigma seating controls on it. But on this chair, the seating controls are completely independent of the control system, also because it's QLogic 1. But when this seating system was installed on my old TDX SP2 back in the day, it just had a separate, well actually I didn't even have a power switch. I couldn't turn it off. And there's a bunch of the, the unlabeled buttons right here, and that's how you control the seating. But since I've got this thing now, I think this can replace the backup chair, and we can just poach the backrest off of this one. Because, yeah, reasons. I really like motion concept seating though. Well, after much screwing around, unfortunately, the seat back that was on this chair will not fit on this one. We've got about 3/4 of an inch of a clearance problem here, and these bolts wind up interfering with this assembly. And in theory, we might be able to move it forward an inch, but I need all the seat depth that this thing has. So I'm just gonna leave this one on here for now. I wound up adjusting the height on it a little bit, so it's pretty good. But without different hardware and without widening the back of this chair, which involves quite a bit of stuff, it's not gonna happen. So we've turned our attention to something else. I am going to build a laundry cart. I've got this little washing machine over here, and I've got this dryer that a Patreon bought me a few years back. This was the wall-mounted one we used in the house 2 houses ago. But what I'm gonna do, if I take the feet off the bottom of this thing, it is just the right height to fit in this lower shelf. And I did all the measuring. This door will open. So we're gonna basically mount it down here. The door will open up here. Then I'm going to notch out this lip a little bit so you can get to that knob. And yes, I realize we're kind of sacrificing this cart, but if I do ever need to take this apart, the cart is still good. But it's got these nice big wheels. So what we're gonna do is also pull the wheels off the bottom of this washing machine. Then we're gonna cut a hole in this, and the washer will sit down here, and it'll stick up probably about yay far. So I think that's gonna be really good. So I can store this thing here if I need to, and take it back to the bus so I can do laundry. But this is gonna be down below. The washer will be right behind it, and we'll have a little low profile cart I can push around and hook up to an RV hookup or a garden hose or whatever we need to do laundry. Probably a little bit hard to visualize right now, but anyways, I'm gonna load all this stuff up, take it back out to where the bus is parked because I've got a Sawzall and stuff out there, then we're gonna get to cutting on this thing. I've had this cart for years, it's worked great. I'm into it probably $200 or something with the price of the cart and the wheels and everything. But right now, I really need a mobile laundry solution. So we're going to do that. Yay. Well, everything just barely fit in here. Washing machine's there, strapped down, dryers on the back. And this cart just barely fit. I didn't have to tie it down. The lift is holding it in place. So now the trick is getting out of here. This might be a two-handed operation. That'll do. So I just used the skill saw to make my initial cut here. I've got it marked out where the washing machine is going to go. Now I will grab the Sawzall and we can cut the strips that go that direction. This thing's good at plunge cutting. It's really annoying trying to get a Sawzall through a solid piece, so there you go. It's like plywood, right? Okay, now we have a hole. I had to move it over just a little bit because the edge of the supports here were kind of in the way. I was going to run it all the way to the edge, but need to re-measure this now. By the way, Stanley lever locks, best thing ever. So let's see, we need to be 17 and a half. So I'm gonna have to make that a little bit wider or a little bit longer or whatever. And our width, 18, close enough. And 14 seconds later, let's see here, we are 18 and a half. That'll do. I'm not too concerned with having this be the tightest fit in the world. We just basically want to slip this thing down in the hole. And yeah, this Rubbermaid cart has done me good. It's going to continue doing so. Worst case scenario, if I need to take all this apart, I can screw some 1/2-inch CDX plywood, not 1/2 inch, not quarter, whatever that size between quarter and a half is, 3/8. I can screw some of that in here and we're good to go. Now, we need to check our depth here. Since we had to bump this over a little bit, we need to make sure we still have room for the dryer. So let's see what we got here. Line up the camera right on the edge there. Appears as though we have roughly 16 inches. This might be tight. Oh, never mind. It's only 13 inches deep. We're good. Okay, so the height on that thing I think was 25 and a half. And now we can get a pretty accurate measurement here. Or was it 22 and a half? I think it was 22 and a half. Let's make sure. So with the feet on it, we're at 23. And if we pull that up, now we're at just under 22 and a half. All right, cool. The only catch now is we're gonna have to remove all this webbing in here. And I haven't quite figured out how I'm gonna do that yet. It's gonna be pretty obnoxious, but that's what Sawzalls are for, right? Okay, I just realized that cutting out all that honeycomb stuff under here is going to be extremely obnoxious. And I want to keep this shelf here next to the washer for rigidity and also a place to put stuff. But I think what I might do is just get some longer bolts and kind of flex this whole thing down a little bit. As you can see, if you push hard enough, you can kind of get it to go in there. So I think I'm just going to run some longer bolts on each side and call it good. It's not going to be the most aesthetically pleasing option, but it will definitely be functional. So, and I can't just space this up because it has all these things that have to like hook together and stuff. Oh, you know what I could do? I could just cut these uprights and then tie them together with some plates. I think that might be the thing to do here. We might do that. I think that might be the easier way to do this. Okay, just in the interest of getting this done tonight, we decided to 86 the lumber because these are round corners. I had a whole bunch of these Simpson straps and I put 2 on each corner. I didn't think it would be very strong, but it seems fine. So I think at this point, I'm gonna add some brackets to hold the dryer in place because there's a cutout here in the front for the knob and it's right up against the front here. So I'm gonna use a couple of brackets to get that thing mounted down. Oh, and I couldn't take the wheels off the washer. It turns out there's something that hangs down lower underneath it. So those had to stay there. But yeah, then we'll figure out the best way to tie this down. But yeah, for now, just with these tech screws, watch your fingers, it's kind of sharp in there. I'll eventually probably replace these with bolts or do some sort of other brackets that slip on, or I don't know, maybe I won't. It's, like I said, it's surprisingly strong. Anyways, I'm gonna keep working. It's getting dark. Okay, it's a little bit windy out here. Hopefully it's not too bad. But anyways, here's our semi-completed laundromat cart. I've there's a connection to the sewer over there, so I just have to push this thing over a ways and then we're good. I just kind of attach this hose a little bit. Well, I say completed, there's still a few things I need to do, but I basically just park this thing right over the sewer inlet and all the water dumps down there. We can hook up our hose here, got one over there. I'm going to be adding some straps to this. Right now it's just sitting there, but as far as the dryer goes, it's actually bolted in place because it needs to be in a very specific spot. So I've got a bracket on each side that's holding that down. And over here, I put a little cutout in for the control knob, and the door opens up perfectly, plenty of room there. So yeah, I think cutting this thing in half and adding these plates worked fairly well. And like I said, it's amazingly stable. I actually can't even tell that it's been cut in half and put back together. But anyways, for now, it's functional. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna add a few more things, probably some straps to hold this in place. On the spin cycle, it's actually not bad. It doesn't shake around or anything, and it doesn't need to be perfectly level. So anyways, there you go, quick solution to a problem. So I was passing by the Goodwill earlier, and I felt this compulsion to stop by, and I'm glad I did, because I found this thing. It is a water cooler heater combo thing. It was 15 bucks. And this is the kind that actually has a compressor in the back, and it's got a heating element and everything as well. I was just thinking the other day, until I get my water tanks hooked up, it'd be nice to have sort of a water cooler type setup. So I went and bought an empty bottle at a grocery store, and what we're going to do right now is take this thing apart, make sure it doesn't leak. I powered it up at the Goodwill, and the compressor seemed to work, and the heating element came on. We're going to take it all apart, clean everything, because it's a little bit schmutzy at the moment, and just take a look at everything inside and make sure it's not too sketchy, but I think it should work for now. Quiet, you. Okay, we managed to get the thing apart. There's a couple of blind screws down here. I had to reach all the way through from the back to get to them, but I just used a long extension with a little screwdriver bit for that. Appears to be a pretty simple design though. We've got room temperature, cold water, hot water. The compressor refrigerates this thing. Then the hot water comes down into this heater tank here, and the outlet is actually above the heater tank, but what it uses is the weight of the water coming down here to force the hot water out. And then the room temperature water, it comes from somewhere in there. There's two holes. I can't quite tell which is which, but we don't have too much random tubing in here. This is just a hot water burn off as this thing's like boiling the water so that it lets the steam come back up through. And then we've got a steel line coming down to the water heater. And then over here on the other side, there is a drain, and it looks like that connects to the bottom of the water heater. So yeah, that's the lowest point in the whole system, so that allows you to drain all the water out of there. But everything looks all right. There's no broken fittings. Turns out all these things just basically come right off. They just screw onto the front panel here. They had sort of some little silicone things. I don't think that's for sealing. I think it was more for vibration. Then we've got some Teflon tape here to seal up the threads. But anyways, yeah, I think we're good. I'm just gonna get to cleaning and sanitizing this thing, and I think we should be good to go. I'll put it back together. All right, so we got the thing mostly put back together. I think I discovered the reason it was at Goodwill. This piece of plastic right here is warped. See how we have a gap right there? And right here by my thumb, see how it's warped down a little bit? So yeah, the seal is not sealing, which means this thing is probably overflowing, which explains why the inside of it was all wet. I'm gonna see if maybe I can heat up this piece of plastic and warp it back, maybe? I don't know. Or maybe there's replacement parts available. Yeah, it's this piece right here. See that warp? I think something might have gotten hot in here. I don't know. Okay, we're testing the thing out. I realize even though that part is bent, it's below the water tank level. So I think in theory, all that does is if the machine gets shaken or tipped a little bit, it keeps the water in there. But I think for right now, I don't think it's leaking. I'm gonna let it finish bubbling for a while and then see if we're getting any leaks. But after looking in there, the depth of that neck is below. So I think we should be all right, maybe, but we'll see. And fast forward a while, we have a little water cooler in here. Obviously, don't want to drive the bus around with this thing set up because water sloshes and kind of goes all over the place. I just got a 3-gallon thing for the top. I figure 5 gallons is too heavy to move around. But this ice maker here, I think we're going to move that into the back somewhere. By the way, that's not a jug of piss. The plastic is just wearing out on it. Yeah, see? Water's clear. I've seen that in the background of a few videos. But anyways, I think ice maker's going to go back there somewhere for now. Meh, whatever. Fired up the cooler function. You see we've got a light on there for that. And the warpage that was in there, I think, because I remember, I swear I had one of these a long time ago. It was a much taller one with a little compartment on the bottom. But I remember, if you leave the hot water on all the time, it starts to get weird. So if I do need hot water, I'll just turn it on then. But leaving it on, I think, is what warped that plastic in there, because that vent tube comes up this side, and that's right where everything is warped. Anyways, works for now. 15 bucks. Good freaking will. Wait, can you even see that? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so the next thing we're working on today is this lift controller. This came out of a friend's truck, and they were having a little bit of trouble with it being reliable. This is one of the Braun UVL controller boards. And what we're gonna do is, I pulled the circuit board off here yesterday, and some of the connections behind these relays, they look like they might be okay, but while it's out of the truck, we're gonna touch them up with a soldering iron. Now you may be wondering why I'm sitting here on the floor of the van. Well, it's actually good timing that I got this, because this remote start module here that my van uses, this connection actually, ever since I installed it, has been a little bit dodgy. And recently now, you can see how this moves pretty easily. But now when I activate the remote start, it'll crank the starter, but it won't actually try and start the engine. So I think what's happening is a similar type thing with this, where some of the solder connections are probably loose. So I'm gonna rip this thing out of here real quick. We're gonna take everything in and touch it all up with the soldering iron. Okay, I got this thing unplugged. As you can see, this connector is kind of canted over at an angle. I think it's got some giant leads that go in here to relays, and some of those connections have pulled off the board. Like I said, even when it was brand new, it was a little bit sketchy, but I was able to position the wires in a way that it would work. But for 2 years or however long it's been, I'm pretty sure once we pop the lid on this, it'll be super obvious. Okay, we're a little bit limited on space in here, but I got this thing mounted on a stand, so I think we can see everything. So what we're gonna do, a lot of these wires go through the holes and stuff, but there's these, let's see here. There's these little squeezy clips that hold the board on. So basically all we need to do is squeeze those and the board will come up off of here. I don't know where my needle nose pliers are. It's the problem with having the warehouse and the bus and half of everything being packed, is trying to locate all of your tools. But I had this off yesterday. It comes off pretty easily. Okay, and now this should just hinge over. There we go. Actually, let's turn this whole thing around. See if I can show you what I'm talking about here. So these are all the connections for those giant relays on the back. And as you can see, while it looks like they're connected, well, one, they didn't trim the leads, but two, some of these joints could really use a little bit more solder. Like I said, they're probably connected, but while the thing's out, we might as well touch them up. And that is pretty quick and easy to do. Got our lead-based solder here from the 70s. I've had this spool, well, I think that spool's been around longer than I've been alive, but let's plug in the soldering iron here. I've got an outlet below the desk. And we're gonna make quick work of this with the Weller 140 watt soldering iron. These are some pretty hefty pins and there's some pretty big tracks on here. So I think thermal mass is going to be in our favor here, but this will not take long at all to do. Plus this soldering gun heats up in about 3 seconds. With connections like this, I like to see a dome of solder all the way around the pins. And this one, there was just barely enough to connect everything. And with it riding around in the back of a truck over the years and bouncing around and stuff, the little tiny bit of solder that was on here can very easily get knocked loose. Okay, I'm going to skip around here a little bit just so I don't heat up those relay connection blocks too much. All right, I'm just going to get this done here real quick. Okay. On giant pins like this, thermal mass is definitely your friend. I did see one of them move a little bit, but I think we're okay. They go all the way through these things and up in. I'm not going to touch these relays. It's really difficult to remove these without disturbing. Well, it's hard to remove the relays without putting a lot of stress on the board. Probably should have cleaned the tip on this a little bit, but anyways, let's see what we did here. Well, the tip was a little bit gunky, but now you can see all of these have a nice little solder dome. All of them have a nice little dome to them now, and they should be pretty well connected. Actually, where's my flashlight? Yeah, some of those look like the board's burned, but that's just gunk from the soldering iron. Okay, I'm a lot more confident those are good now. And so there's a couple other connections over here that I think we're gonna touch up as well while we're in here. Okay, that goes to the fuse holder. Actually, you know what? Now that I look at the other side, the fuse holder is very well attached on this side, so we're not gonna mess with that. I don't wanna put a bunch of heat into that. There's a couple of solder joints down here that look like they could use some love, so we'll just touch those up real quick. Gotta be careful with these because there's wires going through the other side. If we heat them up too much, we could potentially make the wires slide through. Actually, that looks all right. They just use a ton of solder. Yeah, those are fine. We'll go ahead and snap this back onto the metal bracketry. I think the main problem with this lift controller, well, it was working intermittently, but I think the main problem was, I've got a picture here I'll show you on the screen, but over here on this terminal, the screw terminal block, a bunch of the wires were, well, they didn't look very happy. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was the main issue. But since the thing's out of here, we might as well go around and touch up everything anyways. Also, this little tranny or MOSFET or whatever it is over here is, yeah, kind of looks like it's having a party, but I'm not going to touch that. It looks like it's still connected okay, and it seems pretty solid, but yeah. Okay, I think that's all we're going to do on this thing, so let's put this out of the way and have a look at this guy. By the way, someone bought me the iFixit spudger or opening tool off of Amazon. I appreciate that. That one's at the warehouse right now. After that video, what was it, the live stream? We were trying to take something apart. Anyways, I went on Amazon and bought one, but that's good. So now I have one at the warehouse and one here that I carry around with me. So thank you for purchasing that. Let's see if we can get this open. The spudger. And I'm pretty sure whatever we see in here is going to be super obvious. Okay, so there's our... Oh, yep, I can see already. I haven't even flipped the board over. Check it out right here. Get the light just right there. See? You can see there's pins that used to go through there and they've pulled through. So let's get this out of here the rest of the way. Ah, yep. Yep, 100%. Get this in just the right angle there. See that notch? All those pins are supposed to come through the board back here, but you can see, I don't know if it was a manufacturing defect or what. I mean, this is angled down, but those are supposed to go through the holes. So what we're gonna have to do is, oh yeah, and these are loose. See how these move? Oh, yeah. Actually, I can just bend those back. This one's not even all the way through the hole. There we go. There, now you can see it sits level and our tabs are coming through. So it's a good thing we have the giant solder gun out here. We're going to have to put quite a bit of heat into this. And I think we should be okay. I'm gonna see if I can get some solder on top of this one just to give it a little bit more mechanical stabilization. Yeah, so let's see if we can pile some solder on here and get those things fixed. Oop. Here, I need to put something underneath this to stabilize the board. What's the best way to do this? I guess we'll put, there we go. We'll space it up like that. That way this connector is not sitting on the desk. Yeah, these pins aren't quite long enough to go all the way through the board. What they really should have done is also soldered them on the other side. But depending on what order they built this board in, they may not have been able to reach the other side of these tabs. So we'll give it the once over here and see if I can at least get some solder on the other side as well. Or maybe I can just fill this whole thing with hot glue or something on the other side to help hold it in place. Yeah, these are all super nasty. Like this one looks like it's attached, but from my experience working on stuff like this, even though there's solder surrounding it, it may not be actually making a good electrical connection. Kind of reminds me a little bit of welding. I'm beefing up these tracks as well while I'm in here just because it's kind of fun to do. Okay. I think we will call that good. Yeah, see, this just cantilevers off the board so far. And these spade connectors are so big, and the amount of force required to plug this in just makes all that come loose. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to get any solder on this side. See how there's a track right there going around this pin? If I try and load solder on there, there's a very high likelihood that I will cross connect. Get in frame here. There's a very high likelihood that I'll cross connect to that track right there. So I think we're just gonna leave that be. I mean, ideally the best way to do this would be to put a pigtail on here and have this be a external connector that's kind of, what am I trying to say? That's floating off the board. So we're not putting pressure directly on this PCB. But I mean, it seems fairly solid now. All the rest of the pins on here look fine. They poke through the board. So anyways, I think we're gonna call it good for that thing. How does this fit in here? Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it alone. I was trying to figure out, I could potentially put some hot glue on here to stabilize it, but I think we should be all right. Whatevs. I'll just be careful when I plug this in. All right, cool, there we go. Never mind.
Here's something I found on the web.
Ooh.
According to wikipedia.org, Never Gone is a song recorded by American recording artist Colton Dixon, who placed 7th on the 11th season of American Idol.
Okay, thanks for that random tidbit. Okay, we have it reinstalled. Somehow I've lost my zip ties. I only had 2, but anyways, let's see if it works. And we're good to go. Sweet. I still need to go to the junkyard and get a replacement panel to cover all this. I don't know how my OCD has allowed me to operate this vehicle for so long like this, but whatever. Oh man, apparently I made it back in here just in time. There's a little bit of hail or something falling from the sky. Yeesh. Look at that. By the way, meme of the day, I was testing some clear vinyl. It's, one more PSI, please. And there's a little piston with a hobo sack over its shoulder saying, I'm out of here.